Hello and welcome to another free code session. My name is Jason Bach, and well, I think in the last video I was trying to show the results of making an iHandler interface or something like that. Turns out that wasn't the right way to do it. You can't have something that was going to be a rest struct implement an interface. That's not allowed. So back to the drawing board. I thought about it, try to come up with some other ideas, and it really comes down to two. One is I'm not going to support it, but I'm not going to have the code break either. What I am going to try to do is say methods or properties that have getters, indexers, you can't mock the return value. In other words, you can set up an expectation that they've been called, but you can't say what the return value is going to be. It will simply just return default in those cases. Or if it's virtual, do the base call. Okay. But it's not going to, it's basically going to treat it like a handler information, not a handler information of T, because that lets you specify the return type. So then I also have to, as I'm generating code, make sure that I'm handling those as well with the code generation, so that they are in those special cases when you have a ref-like type being returned, you handle it differently. So there's a couple places we're going to do that. And I have a test here. Well, I have a class here that at some point we're going to come back to write a test for and show that, yes, it's going to give default values back. Okay. I did think a little bit about, well, is there any way that I could incorporate something in such that a ref struct handler interface information thing could flow all the way through with rocks as a special case? That would be a lot of work. And this is my last day, night, whatever you want to call it, on vacation. And I said, I'll put that in as a feature request to say support ref-like types being returned for methods or getters as properties, and leave it at that. If somebody wants to eventually put that in because they really want to do that, that's up to them. I am not going to do that. So we're going to close this. No, we don't care. So I'm going to actually get rid of all this. So we basically need, actually, wait, no. So let's do this. In here, wait, in this, only do it for pointer types. Okay. It's not to say that we might generate this type for ref-like types in other scenarios like parameters. This works. So for whatever reason, that works. That's okay. So, well, not whatever reason. It's because we don't need to capture the return type. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I just thought of something. With the return type, what we could do is a func of that. Hold on. Okay, I just put some new code in here because I'm like, could this work? So handler information. Oh, we wouldn't even need to make a class like that. We could just say handler information of get random data return. Right? And then this would all work. So why wouldn't this work? Oh, what? Oh my God, just fine. Seal this. Why are you being such a slow piece of junk? Handler information does not, oh, we can't see it. Okay, you know what? We're going to do this. We're going to grab this and we're going to come over to just, this is literally just a brain thing that just hit my head, and I wonder if this would actually work. So I have no idea. I have no clue. Let's do that. Let's grab this, pull that out, put that up here. So now you should know what get random data return is, right? You should know what that is. It's right there. Enable, just come on. Good. You don't know what immutable array is. Can you, is that going to work? Okay, fine. Now, return value. Will that work? That's fine. Okay, wait a minute. Let's say public static void foo. Boom. Boom. I shouldn't have deleted that. I should not have deleted that. We can regenerate it. Okay, so the idea would be is if you need something to be returned, we just say handle information of some delegate that we make. And I believe if we make a delegate as a callback, there's no reason why we couldn't make it as a return value as well. And then you see here, return value ends up being that delegate. You invoke it, it returns a span of X. That's what gets returned back. This could work. This could work. And this would actually be pretty, this would be sweet if it did. Okay, first things first. Keep that sealed. Bring that back. Come over here. Let's go to code generation tests. Okay. And I think this is still geared up for it. Yep. Okay. So let's do this. For the make, it shouldn't matter. And it doesn't, because when I've been running this, I'm only getting one error in my tests, not for the one for make. Because the makes just, you return a span just as default. We don't do anything else. We'd only have to be careful to say, in the case where the return type is a ref-like type, that we do return value exclamation point. You know, we see if it's that, and if it is, then we say return value exclamation point dot, and then we say invoke. And we would invoke whatever delegate you give me to return a span back. And that's all it does. Which is true. Yeah, we got a preamble callback here. And that's because for an ASCII encoding, the only thing that has a, that's right. I think if I looked at this, when I looked at this before, none of these are virtual. If you go to encoding, string by page, preamble. That's the only thing that has, and that's why you're only seeing this callback being made. Okay. And it's being called here to say, if you've set up a method handler, you would have called get preamble, and that gives you the result. Otherwise, what we're saying here is it would be the return value. Now, I have a decision to make here, which is if you want to return a value from a method that does a ref-like typeback, is using the callback sufficient? This would feel weird because what's ending up happening here is a callback gives you a way to hook into a method's invocation like what you see here. It just so happens that if the method returns a value, the delegate lets you return the value. And I'm surprised I did not see this before, but I'm glad I caught this. Otherwise, because by default we're saying with something that returns a read-only span type, we're trying to return a value from there because it's noticing that it's a return type. And so we tried to say return value. Why wouldn't you just use the callback in this case? Now, this is a design thing. There is a little bit of a thing here, whereas you can say, if I do a, if I want to return something, or if I want to handle the method's invocation, then callback is what's going to return the value. If I don't care what the method does for whatever reason, I just want to say this is the return value, then I say return value. Okay. Here's the weird thing, is that the return value here, the return value here, we would want it to say return value. We actually wouldn't. Yeah, we're just doing that. We'd almost say the same thing here. We'd say this literally gives you the return value, but this wouldn't give you any access to the arguments or anything like that. That's what return value does, is it just says, if you want to return an int, here's the int. There may be 5 parameters to the method, but you're saying, I don't care what they are. I don't care what it has to do or anything like that. I simply want to say this returns 5. And that's what you could do here. You could say, I want this to just simply return this span of int. So I think what I would want to do is, I believe what I would want is to generate not a callback, call it get preamble return value of whatever this is. And that's what this would be casted to. The method handlers, we could say method handler, those are just handler information objects, because that's what they're casted to. We would have to say it's a handler information of, and then in brackets say, or in the braces say the delegate that we're creating. And then we could say on that method handler, because now we have it of that type, we could say dot return value, exclamation point dot, and then invoke if we want to be clear. Okay, this is probably not as clear to read. I think we could also say, if we're back up here, can you just do that? I don't think so. Yeah, you actually can't. So we'd have to say that in this case. Okay, but I think that's actually the right thing to do, because it's possible that you will have you might have more than 0 arguments to the method. And you might just say, I just want to have this return the value. It just so happens it has to be a func or a delegate, that, because funcs won't work with ref-like types. We can say a delegate that will match it, and that will give what we want. So plan D, I think I'm on, or E, I don't even remember anymore. So here's what we need to do. First, yeah, no, hold on. Let me go back to here. Only do it for pointer types. We don't generate for ref-like types. And this occurs when you do build handler information, is for the return types. We don't want to do that here. We don't need to generate a special type for this. When we generate delegates, we need to generate and what are we doing here? We're calling it like we need to generate a member name dot return value underscore hash code delegate that takes no parameters and returns the ref-like type. Okay. In the expectations, the handler is handler information of this thing. Okay. This means that, where's returns? This is method adornments, right? So t up here. We don't put a restriction on t result, which is awesome. Yeah, because that's going to flow through. I think it's going to flow through just like what we think. The return value would be whatever that is. Okay. That means that returns should have the right type. Okay. In the mock generation, in the mock, when we need to return a value, either in a method or either in a method or a getter, a property indexer getter, we need to do, need to do something like this. So let's pull this over. We would say get preamble callback. Otherwise, we would cast to handler information of, let's say we have, we'll call it get random data callback. Otherwise, we're going to say get random data return value. And that's what we cast method handler to. We say return value, boom, dot invoke, and we return that. So I think this is the plan that we want to follow, okay? And I think this should work. So I'm going to start doing this. I'm not going to get probably through it in this episode, but hopefully I can get through it enough so that in the next episode I can try this. And then hopefully I can finally get past all the errors, and then we can start looking at the warnings and see what makes sense. And I might say in that code generation test to say, if that code is in a list for warnings, ignore it because we just don't care about it. Maybe we just say, yeah, whatever. So let's do this. Okay. Come on. You can do it. So that can stay sealed. We want to get rid of this because it doesn't need to stay around. That was just us playing around. Index or dormants. We don't need that or that. Okay. So yeah, rough struct chess is probably just because I put this here and we don't care about that. Okay. So what's the first thing I want to do? Let's do that. So build handler information. We only do this if the type is pointer. Okay. Pointer type or function pointer type. Yep. We don't care about it being an esoteric type. Same thing here. If you look at an esoteric type, this is saying pointer and ref-like or ref-like type, and that's not what we want. We just want pointer types. Okay. And now this is just going to fall through. It's going to make it like it normally does with the right pointer type. Okay. So it'll build handler information, it'll build add extension methods, and it'll build the dormant information for all these projected types. We don't need to do that in this case. Okay. But what we do need to do is in the create, when we're saying projected types builder, this is where we want to say it requires a projected delegate. Okay. Now in our case, it requires a projected delegate if it returns a method, if it returns a ref-like type, or it's a getter that returns a ref. We'll get to the properties in a moment. Explicit ones, fine. So we say build delegates, and then we build a delegate. Where is build delegate? Build delegate is get projected delegate, and get a projected delegate looks like extended name with the callback here. Yeah, so we get the name of the method, but we get the callback. Return type is just, we don't look at the name here. But what we want to do is say, we want to do this regardless, because you're going to have to do the callback. But we also need to do this for a return, get projected return value, delegate name. So what we want here is a way to say get projected return value. This will be return value. Okay. And the name is fine. Now, why are you barking? No, it doesn't. What are you talking about? This is not the same thing. Jeez, it took like 20 seconds for it to finally figure that out. What we want to do is turn this into a block body. Okay. We want to say this, and then we want to say if method.return type is pointer. Okay. Then what we want to do is say writer.writeLine. Well, we say get projected delegate here. Okay. No. Is ref like type. Okay. Only in the case of a ref like type would we want to do this. We don't want to do a projected delegate in this case. What we want to do is say, because we're actually doing it here, we want to say get projected. We can do the same thing. We have the power, except we're going to say projected return value delegate. Okay. And that's what's going to go here. Okay. In this case, the return type would be that. It has no parameters. We do care if it's unsafe, and we will say simply that. We don't care about parameters. You just give us the return type. I highly doubt the method would be unsafe, and in fact, we don't care about it being unsafe. We can just say this, okay? Yes, except here, we want to say that. Yes, there we go. So now we have the return one being built as well. Okay. And this is good because we're probably going to be needing to call this somewhere else to say, what did we actually do with it? Let's do the properties as well. We say build delegates, build delegate. And this should just fall through because we're looking at the get method. We select the get method, and that's a method symbol. So my hope is that it's actually going to do the right thing. And in fact, I believe it will, because if we look at this generated code, if we come all the way back up to the top here, the get preamble actually returns this. And that's exactly what we're trying to mimic. And so we get internal delegate return type. Okay, so now if we go back to here, we say done, and we say we generate delegates, takes no parameters, and returns a roughly. And the expectations, okay, so the handler T type is that, okay? So it would actually be this. Yes. Right, okay. Come on, you can just literally switch over to another tab. Okay, so now let's go to, I think it's the method, I think it's this one. If I can see through the forest what I'm actually trying to do here. Yeah, we might have to do a couple of iterations on this. So you know what? I'm going to stop. I'm going to continue on the next episode and see if we can get this all the way through. I'm kind of excited, but I want to make sure that I'm doing this right. So thank you all for watching. Leave comments and questions below. See you in the next episode.